Hey there, trying to figure out a video for today, and you guys know that I have chickens and I've had ducks in the past, but I would really like to do some more videos about some other animals, and sheep would be a great one, but I don't have sheep. I do know someone that does though, and I've been trying to get him to make a video for a while. Let me give Jesse a call and you know, see if he'd be into this.
Hey dude, what's up?
Yeah, what are you up to right now, man?
I'm just out moving the sheep.
Hey, I'm actually here talking about making a video about sheep. Can we do that?
No, Josh, dude, I'm not gonna shoot a video about the sheep. You shoot a video about the sheep.
Hey man, well how am I supposed to make a video about sheep? I don't have any sheep. We might have to come and see you to make the video?
Fine, yeah, come here and shoot a video about the sheep. Fine.
All right, I guess I'll come see you then.
Fine.
Yo, dude. Let's do the video. I'm here, man. Let's do the video.
All right.
No, I do want to talk about your sheep while I'm here. It's
Okay.
awesome that we're here, but
All right.
I want you to talk about your sheep and maybe give some tips for people that might be thinking about sheep or not thinking about sheep.
Sure. So, all right, so here's the thing. If you're looking to get into sheep, right, this is something that we need to talk about because a lot of people think, oh, okay, I'll get on Craigslist and I'll find some sheep. And there's a lot to getting sheep that people don't realize. Like, for instance, one of the big things that we're doing with our sheep is that we're breeding them in a way that we can sell stocks of sheep. So basically like a starter flock. And the reason is because our sheep are trained to our fencing, to our system in a way that other sheep aren't. And I think that's something really important to look at when you're looking to buy sheep. You need to look at how they're actually managed. And in this case, we manage them with these polywire, with these electric fences that we get from Premier One, and we rotate them every single day. Sometimes it'll go 36 hours or 48 hours depending on the paddock and the time of year, but generally every day we move them. There's a lot of reasons to move sheep, but it's a good dewormer, right? They leave their worms back there and they move on to fresh paddocks. It's a good way for them to eat fresh forage to maximize photosynthesis, so they're just taking a small percentage of the grass and not the whole plant all the way down to the ground. And the reason that's important in terms of like when you're looking for good sheep to buy, not just buying any old sheep on Craigslist, is because these sheep are trained to this system. So if you get sheep that are trained to a permanent bed system or permanent fencing system, that's what they know, and they'll go right through this electric wire that we set up. In terms of getting into sheep, that I think is the #1 factor, is making sure that you're getting sheep from somebody who manages them like you plan on managing them.
So, are there different breeds of sheep? I'm gonna ask the silly questions here.
No, it's great. There are quite a few different breeds of sheep. These are what's called a hair sheep. So the difference is like a hair sheep or a wool sheep. A wool sheep is like, you know, something that they grow the big wool, you cut it off, and you're gonna spin that or sell it to a woolery, right? Hair sheep are a meat breed. So this is bred specifically so they don't have wool, which can impart lanolin flavor on your meat. So when people think about lamb tasting a specific way, they're often thinking about wool sheep that have been slaughtered after they're done with wool production, because that flavor from the wool, the oil that they put out to kind of protect it, make it waterproof, has this really intense flavor. Hair sheep don't have that. They've been bred to get away from the wool flavor, from the lanolin flavor as they call it.
How much, if you're like, at what age do they get slaughtered?
We slaughtered about 1 year on grass, whole grass. We don't feed any grain. We slaughtered about 1 year. You can do it as about 9 months to 1 year. It just depends on your forage and the time of year that they're born. If they're born in the spring and they just knock it out, great forage all the way through, then you can slaughter them a little earlier. We tend to go towards about a year. A little bit less is fine. Now the one thing about sheep is they're hard to profit from because they're they're low weight in general. They're never, unless you're getting the really large sheep. There are breeds of sheep that are very big. These are not. These are like a medium-sized hair sheep.
Is that the technical term, hair sheep?
Hair sheep, yeah, that's what they call them.
All right.
No, well, hair sheep or wool sheep, right?
Yeah.
So these are Katahdin. You asked about breeds. These are Katahdin. They are kind of the best rotational grazing sheep, and I say that just because that's what most of the rotational grazers go for in terms of wool sheep or meat sheep. But there are several others. This is the only one I've ever really worked with. There's like St. Croix and all these others that are supposedly just as good. For me, it's more about the management system than necessarily the breed. You can always breed them to do what you want them to do, to be the producers you want them to be, to put on the kind of weight that you want them to put on, but you can't it's so much harder to train them to your system. So that's the big thing for me, is finding the sheep that have the system that's similar to you when you're looking for them, more so than the breed. And of course, you want to be conscious of whether or not it's a wool sheep or a hair sheep.
So they're just grass-fed.
So they're 100% grass-fed, grass-finished. We do a salt mix, Redmond's salt, real salt. That's the only mineral we do.
So in terms of cost here, you have your fencing to set up.
It's labor. It's almost 100% labor.
I know, but it's just that. Yep. And then the input for the sheep. Are you breeding them? Or are you buying?
We breed them, and we don't have a ram in at this moment. We bring a ram in around Thanksgiving so that we have lambs born in like the spring, in April. It's about a 5-month gestation. So yeah, that's
where do you like borrow a ram from?
You can borrow rams, you can buy one. We usually buy one, and we usually buy them from somebody else that has Katahdins that again raise them in a similar system. And the reason, and you can resell that ram for fairly, like a good Katahdin ram sells for about $200 to $250. You can buy it for $250. You can prove that it's a good ram, show the people the kind of lambs that it produces, and they can decide whether or not they want that in their stock.
So if people are interested in getting sheep, this is not for everybody, right? You have to have a good amount of space to do this.
It's less than you'd think. On 6 acres, we have 13 sheep, and I think at max in the middle of the summer, when we have the best forage, we can fit about 20 on that acreage.
And how often are you moving them?
About every 24 to 36 hours.
Okay. In terms of sales, though, you'd say it's not a very profitable enterprise.
It's not that it's not profitable. It's not the reason that I don't like to talk about them so much is because it's not a super profitable item for us, because the number that we have, if you're taking them to market and you're doing them in cuts, and you're selling the individual cuts, and you have the time and the market for it, you can make a decent profit per sheep, maybe like $300. If you don't, then you're not going to.
So it's about having enough of them to make it
worthwhile.
It's about
having enough of them and having the market for them. For us, it's hard to make a profit on that few of sheep. Like, I think when you get into the 40 or 100 range, you can start to really look at something that could be profitable, especially if you're hand selling the cuts. If you're trying to do retail or wholesale, or if you're trying to do wholesale to restaurants or something, it's a little bit more difficult. Yeah.
And what about in terms of pasture management? Have you seen, is this going to increase your fertility? Are you mainly using this as lawnmowers?
Yeah, so you're maximizing your photosynthesis. So like grass, right? You have grass growing up here. They're clipping just a little bit so the roots grow. And then it grows back and they clip a little bit and the roots grow, while it's growing. And then it keeps doing that. And what's happening there is, if in a continual grazing system, if you're just letting your sheep graze all the way through until until the grass is this, then your root system's doing that. So it's kind of like an accordion, that if you allow that root to grow, it'll grow like this. So there's clipping off just like 10 or 15%, and then it's just growing and growing, so the roots are growing, so you're gaining carbon under the soil, and the solar panels are growing, so you're gaining more ability to put roots in the soil.
So how long have you been grazing a bunch of sheep here?
Here?
Yeah.
For 3 years.
Okay. Have you seen a change in your soil or the grass?
We haven't been testing it, so I don't know.
Just in terms of the way things are growing,
Yes, some ways in good and some ways bad. I've overgrazed before. I pushed it to about 23 sheep, and it was just too much for a dry summer. And we saw effects that were negative. and we've seen really great effects throughout like the winter when we did it well.
Okay.
So, and we've been helping with rotational grazing for 10 plus years. So
how do these work in like a homestead situation? Like you've had goats before too, right?
we've had everything: goats, sheep, pigs, chickens, turkeys, all of it. And this for us is the most manageable, and I'll tell you why. This is the big reason. Sheep will both come to you and you can push them. Pigs don't care when they get out. Cattle are enormous and they're really hard to move around. You can work them, like you can castrate them if you have to. You can put ear tags in if you have to, very easily. They're very easy to herd, right? They're sheep. It's that for us is the biggest thing. Is it's easy as vegetable farmers to manage them because they don't require a lot of time, and they're really easy to get to do what you want them to do.
So I know you're not really rotating your chickens much at this moment, right?
But we will. We're going to start adding the chickens into the rotation.
Okay. Are they going to follow behind the sheep, or
Yep.
is that going to be a separate loop?
They'll be
or?
right behind the sheep.
Okay.
Yep. And we're actually have a fence. They won't be. They could get into the same paddock, but they won't be technically kept in the same paddock. They'll be in their own paddock behind them, and they'll scratch the manure that the sheep leave behind.
Is there any good resources? Like, where'd you learn about all this sheep stuff?
I interned on a farm that did rotational grazing, so that's where I learned about it. But also there's some good resources about sheep management. Stockman grass farmers are the best resource on that stuff, and any of the archives that you can get into on sheep production, they're amazing. Stockman grass farmers are incredible. And there've been a couple books, and I mean Joel Salatin's talk about rotational grazing generally speaking, and that he's a great resource for that. Greg Judy, all those guys, they're amazing, and that's definitely places that we've gotten our inspiration.
So I don't see any structure for them. They sleep wherever, like they just camp out under the trees.
Yeah, there's no shade structures. We use our trees.
So there's enough trees around that you guys rotate.
Yeah, we can rotate them in such a way that we can get a tree in every paddock.
Okay.
So it's not a manufactured silvopasture, but it kind of is just like a makeshift one. Silvopasture just being a pasture that you have trees in, and we have trees in here that have been here since we moved, so we've just used them that way.
Cool. So labor-wise, you just got to move them every 24 to 36 hours. You have the mineral salts you give them, and then water.
Yeah, pretty much. That's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's for dinner tonight?
Fish.
Okay.
Chip, 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 chip. Yeah. Chip, 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 chip.
Let's do this video.
Oh, you gotta redo that.
Oh,
sorry.
sure.
All right.
I thought we were gonna make that.